My microphone is muted, chat. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome back to the stream. It's Monday. We're talking about this weekend's Warhammer. How's everybody doing this morning? It's been a hell of a weekend, to say the least. Got back from Battle for Salvation at about 2 a.m. this morning, and then kind of rolled out and had to rebuild my whole streaming setup. So apologize for a little bit later than the scheduled time, but yeah, it was an interesting weekend of streams, to say the least. I think we have to have a conversation about this weekend's live streams, because I know that I was happy with the setup. I was happy with the coverage. I know that the event was happy. There were a bunch of people in chat. It was super fun. A lot of people dropped some support for the channel, some memberships, and super chats, and I super appreciate everyone who did that. You all are amazing, and made the weekend fairly successful, which is good for me. A little less happy with how the games ended up going over the course of the weekend. It was maybe I don't know. We didn't. Sometimes you get like some real barn burner games, right? And especially you get to day 2 and you start to get some really exciting games, and it just didn't happen this weekend, and that made me a little sad. I do think that there's a conversation that I need to have with myself about how some of those games ended up going. I know that I had a very long conversation with Johnny Zoo, the Chaos Mystery player, who ended up going undefeated. He did win his last game, which honestly looked really good. I'm actually a little sad we missed it, but I know that nobody wanted to see that Chaos Mystery list on the table for the third round in a row. Everyone wanted to see St. Pope's Tyranids, and we did watch his Tyranids stand in a corner and passively score points for an entire game, so that was very good. Good for him. But I had a very long conversation about how Johnny chose to play his games out, and how I enunciated my disappointment. I'm gonna move my microphone here, Chad. Sorry if it bumps. With how those games ended up going, and I know that the judges had some discussion with him, not necessarily about his play. They had some discussion about him with timing issues. He also had a modeling issue, which was kind of irrelevant. His predators were Horus Heresy predators, and they had the las cannon on them and not the autocannon. Whatever. The Horus Heresy las cannon kind of looks like an autocannon anyway. I don't think there was any confusion over the course of the event. But I do think that his play was less than stellar. And I think it's an interesting question to, that I think I need to consider myself. They did say that I was sort of an honorary judge specifically for the stream table, so I could bring up rules issues if they made big mistakes and answer questions and stuff like that, which ended up happening a couple times over the weekend. But I'm always a little bit, I'm a little wary to kind of butt in when it comes to issues of sportsmanship, which is I think a lot of what happened over the course of the weekend, and made those games a little less exciting or interesting to watch. But I think that it was probably after the first game worth a discussion with the head judge about how they would like that situation to be resolved, because I don't think that the conduct on stream was particularly good. It was a little unfortunate too that we did end up streaming him on the semifinals game. I think it is good to sort of shine a light on kind of some sportsmanship issues like that, but I do think that it would have been a more interesting game to hit one of the other ones. Unfortunately, there was a delay between the rounds. So by the time that I had known who Zach Hilt, who was the poll winner for that game, who his opponent was, and I had asked him to come over and stream the other games, because they had to talk to Johnny. That was when they discussed his issue with his predators. The other games were actually already basically in Battle Round 1, so we could not have switched the matchup at that time, which was a little bit of an awkward timing. But I don't know. I think that it was worth it for me, and this is not something that I've really done before on an event that I've covered, but maybe something that I should have an honest discussion with the judges about. I think it's worth enunciating and confirming, what the depth of my involvement can be, I guess. Because I'm always reticent to address players on a live stream about issues of conduct, because it's so much more of a gray area, right? If someone asks for a take back, or they take a take back, or they're moving in a way that we on our end of the camera would consider to be inappropriate. They're moving their miniatures. That might not be the perception of the players at the table. And addressing that, I think, creates a more antagonistic atmosphere than maybe necessarily the stream game needs, especially because it is a stream game, right? And the players are there sort of their own free will, and they're there essentially to entertain us. So how demanding we can be of their time is a little, I don't know, I think we have to be careful about how much pressure we put on the players to act well and stuff. But I do think that there was some issues over the course of the live stream game that were bordering on in the sort of I guess sort of mechanical misconduct, I guess, and not just poor sportsmanship. But I wonder if it's worth, sort of in the future situations like what occurred arising, if it's worth just pausing the clock and having a discussion with the player in question, being like, hey man, what's up? You good? You good, buddy? We should be non-existent to the game. Yeah, I think, for sure. If nothing is, and I do have, and obviously, what our level of development is entirely up to the judges. That's a discussion I have with the judges at the beginning of every event. How much do you want me to step in cases, in rules cases, right? And it is becoming more difficult for me. It's something that I have noticed. It's becoming more difficult for me to catch rules inconsistencies the more sophisticated my streaming becomes, because it means that there's a heavier workload on me. The more cameras I add, the more PTZ cameras I have, the more the higher quality audio equipment. All this stuff requires attention, and so there's a finite resource of my amount of brain cells, basically. And so back in the day, a year ago, I'm live streaming events, and I literally have 3 cameras that are static, and I'm basically just staring at the screen. So anything that a player does that is inappropriate, I catch immediately. So if a judge says, hey, we want you to actively judge this game, then I'll catch shit tons of stuff. Not everything. There's some stuff that I either won't rule on, or is very difficult to rule on. One of the things is measurement. I saw a lot of people bringing up some measurement stuff in the chat. That's just so impossible to determine off of a live stream. I don't think people understand how inaccurate the live stream is to a physical table. First off, you cannot see the entirety of the table at any one time, basically regardless. So and the table is not the correct size in your perception. So a guesstimation of distance is almost always incorrect on the table. Even if you see what looks to be a 44 by 60 table on your screen, oftentimes, at least in my setup, oftentimes there's 1 or 2 inches on the edges that gets cut off. And so that throws off all your guesstimation. There's usually a parallax between the camera and the table. It's not a direct top down, and the camera may be off by a couple of degrees, right? It's not a perfect science. I basically just pointed at the table to make sure it looks good. But that may be that there is an angle of attack, between the player, between the camera and the table. So it's not like Tabletop Simulator where you can see a finite measurement when the player's moving. If you see a tape measure and you say, hey, that looks really long, it's probably fine. And that's basically impossible to adjudicate. Dice stuff too is really hard to do because it goes so quickly. But yeah, it's something that I've noticed myself being unable to do more and more the more I stream. But it's always a conversation I have with the judges, like how involved do you want me to be if something goes horribly wrong, if somebody's just playing a rule wrong or something like that, should I remind them? And sometimes you just say, hey, we'd rather do that. We'd rather you guys just be observers. And sometimes they say, hey, do literally anything and everything. It's up to the event entirely. Yeah, and generally speaking, it's always like appropriate for me to contact a judge to let them do them themselves. There wasn't anything like specific that happened, Chad. For those who missed the live stream, we had a player on the quarter and semifinals games who ended up going undefeated. Who was just playing extremely sloppily. There wasn't like a big thing that they did where it was like, oh man, he shot all his units twice or like cheated with his dice or something. But it was a lot of takebacks. It was a lot of like nitpicking his opponent. There's a lot of like clock management stuff that didn't go well. All of his games went to time, and then they went to time in round 5, and then like ended up being, I don't know, sort of a kind of a sloppy talk out. It wasn't a good showcase, I think, for the game. And it's tough. Like the problematic part of those situations is it's not something where someone is like straight up just and to be honest, I don't think that this was somebody like trying to game the system to win. I think that it was a high pressure situation. The player had mentioned that he's struggling on a clock because of his list. The timing was very tight in that event. They kept the rounds extremely slim, and so between the stream setup, which they did get 5 or 10 minutes for usually, but between the stream setup and a list that took a long time to play, and very, I would say, strict adherence to the chess clock, which was mandated by the judge team. I think it was high pressure and he was getting really sloppy and stressed, and it was unfortunate to watch, to be honest. Inky's here to tell us it's okay. And so it wasn't one big thing that we can just like look at and be like, hey man, it's a whole scandal now. It was just, I think, a player who was playing poorly. That's about it. It's an unfair advantage to all the other tables of the tournament that there's not a judge there. I don't think that's fair. I think that's I think that is I think in a perfect world, right, every game would go well regardless. The fact that we have the ability for at least one of those games to be played to a higher standard than the other ones is something that we should be using, right? In a perfect world, every game would be played perfectly with no issues whatsoever. And the closer we can get to that ideal, the better. And even if that's just one table that's on stream, I think that's good. Do I have an affiliate link to the cameras I'm using? I don't have an affiliate link. I have an MX Brio is my top-down 4K camera, and I have Instalink 360s are the side cameras. I also use a Logitech C920 for my dice cam. And for when I have wireless cameras, which I didn't turn on that weekend, but I think I could have. I was on a 5G uplink, and I was worried about data usage, but I actually only ended up using about 20% of my cap. Which is surprising. I thought I would use way more data, but no, it was okay. So I could have turned on my wireless cameras probably. Those are Mevo multicams. Streamed games need more active judging at tables. Yeah, and to be honest, when we got to top 8, or at the very least top 8, right? The level of attention that the stream game was getting was not significantly more than the other tables. The judge team, I mean, kudos to the judge team over there. Ben Rubenstein is like just a fucking incredible judge. He's the New England Open kind of head judge, guru. He's ridiculously knowledgeable at the rules. He's also extremely good at 40k, which is a, I think, in my opinion, an important ability or characteristic to have if you are a judge, because it means that you can identify game states much easier. He's the New England Open Invitational champion we streamed last month. He beat Sam Pope, he beat Drew Salsborn, he beat a bunch of like top 100 players to get there. So he's incredibly good, and he's just, I don't know, just very good judge. So they had active judges at the top 8 tables, and they had them in a row, and they had a judge standing next to those tables the entire time. And as we saw on camera, the other undefeated game, the other finals game, had a judge sitting at the table for the entire game. They had a table judge there. And obviously, our finals game did not really need a judge very much. So that was not. They had to be reminded that the banners was the mission. I think this is the only thing that came up. But the judging was extremely active. I don't want to be like, hey, because there's a camera on that game, suddenly the level of judging on that game is significantly higher than the other ones. It was probably commensurate, I would say. Illustrates the importance of practicing writing a list. You're physically able to pilot. Yeah, and that was a discussion that I had with the player after the event. He was like, "Hey man, like my list takes a really long time," and I was like, "Yeah, that's on you though." It is, and I think that, I don't know. There's an interesting perception in some members of the community where if you are trying to play extremely competitively, all right, Kitty, can we not keep walking in front of the camera over here? Where if you are trying to play competitively and you want to win, you are like obligated to play the most mechanically and mathematically optimal build, right? And I think that some people literally think this way. And they say, so if I'm going to play, in this case, Chaos Space Marines, if I'm going to play Chaos Space Marines, the way that you win with Chaos Space Marines is you play 3 Cursed Cultist Dark Commune squads. And you play a bunch of Predators, and you play a bunch of Vindicators. And that is the list, right? It's not my list. That's the list that you're supposed to play. And I think that like you have to take some sort of like personal agency in that style where you identify, hey, I'm not good at playing Horde units. So maybe we don't play 3 Accursed Cultist squads. Maybe we cut one because it's difficult for me to physically play. And that's something I do all the time. I loathe playing Horde units, so I never play them, right? Just because I don't want to. I don't want to play them in time, like on a clock. I don't want to play them in time. I just like, it's not interesting. But I think that some players will just take the most optimal list they can, regardless of whether or not they can play it in a timely manner. And I think that is, you know, something that a player needs to self-identify and probably work the way around. Any player can call a judge, and they should, yeah. Yeah, it's true, but it's awkward in the moment, and especially, you know, because the games were timed and the timing was so strict, it's difficult to be like, hey, can we, like, put it on my clock and waste 5 minutes just to, like, ask the judge if my opponent, like, my opponent can stop being, like, kind of a dick, you know what I mean? Like, that's difficult to do. Warhammer players not always the most socially adept people. They're, you know, get a little awkward about calling judges and stuff. Personal opinion: objective markers for the mission should be set up before the match starts to be provided by the event. So they were set up before the game started. I set them up before each game started. I did get them wrong at one point, which was embarrassing. But I mismeasured one of them. But I set them up before the game. Well, part of the slowdown at this event, and this is just how the event was running their top tables. All of the tables had a USO layout on them. They were using 4 USO layouts. And essentially what they did was that every table that got called to the stream, they would replace the terrain based on what table they got pulled from. So they would use the same layout. And in some cases that did add some time to the pregame phase because they ended up replacing the terrain. I think that was like fine though. I don't think it ended up being huge. And generally speaking, they were very lenient on the players getting extra time. People close to those players need to be proactive. Yeah, that's like a community. That's a community thing, but that's also something that's really hard to do with someone who's close to you, right? It might be easier from like a social standpoint, but you don't want to go to your friends and be like, "Hey, man, you're an asshole," especially because a lot of times it's something that comes out from players when they are in a competitive setting, right? So you're talking to somebody, you're going to dinner or whatever, and they're like a cool guy, and they're the chillest dude, and you've been friends forever. But then as soon as they get into a competitive setting, like they turn it on and they get really competitive about stuff. And so it's like difficult to identify, and it's also difficult to bring up to people. Like I don't know if you should put the onus on on everyone else in the situation. I don't think that's totally fair. I think it's up to people. It's up to people like with authority in the community, and it's up to people. I don't know. It's a sort of a whole community thing for sure. Bonsai Kitty, it's why you love netlisters. Regardless of the game, knows the players have no idea how to pilot their lists. Unironically true. I do think like once you're like 4 or 5-0 at a GT, you know what's going on. But there definitely are there are the classic netlisters who just switch their list every week to whatever is the highest win rate on stat check and end up not learning how to play any of them. And to be honest, I'm not going to throw any shade at Johnny here. He is a very good player, and he is I think demonstrably a very good player. It is just unfortunate that his very good play gets overshadowed by some poor sportsmanship, some high stress at the events. Very popular post on Warhammer competitive subreddit where the guy who's never won an RTT got upset he didn't place in a GT simply because he was running a list by pros. Yeah, it turns out you also have to be good at 40k. That's, yeah, classic. That's classic. Yeah, it is slow for sure, and he and I had a really long conversation about it after the event. It's been discussed, it's been brought up sort of ad infinitum. I think I less want to talk about the specifics of the player here. I don't think that's as conducive to the discussion. I know there's going to be a big thread on Reddit about it, and I told him, I was like, hey man, if you go online tomorrow, people aren't going to be happy with you after the live stream. I think it's I don't know. I think it's a discussion that I need to have with myself probably about how confident I am confronting people in situations like that. Even at post game, right? Because I think that what should have happened is that the conversation that I had with him after the event should have happened immediately upon the cameras turning off, right? And I think that would have probably headed off a lot of the contention in game 2. And I think like I don't know. I think I would like to take some culpability for that because I'm not a very confrontational person. It might feel weird, but I get very awkward in confrontational situations. I've incredible social awkwardness, and so I try to avoid those as much as possible. But I think it was something that I needed to do earlier than I did, even if it wasn't during the game at all. I think there was a discussion, and maybe it was something that I needed to talk to the judge about, although it's very difficult to do like while the game is ongoing. Just being like, hey, you know, do you want me to talk to this guy? But after the game, saying like, hey, man, you got to slow down, my dude. I think would have been the thing to do. Difficult because people are so raw after a game, they may or may not respond well to confrontation. Yeah, I think that is true, probably. It's definitely like a different setting if the event is over and done with, for sure. But I also think that that's when it needs to happen the most, right? Because, like, honestly, I feel for the double Zacks, because I do feel that they deserve to do better in the tournament, and I think that they're like the real victims here. You know what I mean? Whether or not we think, like, regardless of what we think about the results of the game and how we feel about watching the game, and you know, the other unfortunate part about, like, from our perspective, right, is that looking at these games for competitive information, you'd be like, oh, how does the ACDC matchup go against Tau? Well, that game doesn't really matter. Theoretically, Tau do great, but if it ends on like a weird round 5 talk out, then which is what ended up happening, then I don't know. Is that actually how that game goes if you played it 1,000 times? Probably not. In a broader spectrum. So like, it is unfortunate for us, but realistically, we are bystanders, right? The real people who suffer are the people who are playing against these people. And I don't think it's fair to them to like leave it up to a player to figure out themselves that everybody's like kind of upset with them. So they did check in, and I did bring up that there were timing issues to the judge when to Ben, the head judge, when he was coming by, but they weren't watching the stream game entirely. I was there to they said that I could answer rules questions, which I did a couple times. Am I streaming the team tournament next year? No, so I had a conversation with Battle for Salvation. I don't think it's locked in quite yet, but they said that they like having War Games Live on for their team tournaments, and I do think that his setup is probably more conducive to team tournaments. I don't have enough cameras. Joe's streaming rig is much more sophisticated than mine. But they said that they're almost 100%. They want me to come back for their singles event next year. They also said that the venue that they're in, they're almost at capacity. I think they said they could fit maybe 30 more players. And that if they added additional streamers, it would take up more space, and so they would physically be running out of space. It was I think 3 ballrooms, basically of the size of the venue there, and they took up all of them this year, and they could squeeze things in to fit about 40 more players and restrict the space a little bit. But I think that is almost like the capacity of the venue, so they can't add more additional space for streaming. And I can condense down really small, but we don't want to put extra pressure on them. But they said they would like to have me back for next year, so that would be cool. Does my cat fart? No, but she does snore. She snores very loudly. So yeah, I don't know. I think that I have to be prepared to have conversations with the judges, and then theoretically the players a little bit more often than I do. I think that's a personal an area of personal growth that I would like to expand in, to hopefully at least nip these issues in the bud in the future. And especially like stuff like sloppy movement and stuff, I think is something that assuming that the judges are okay with it, which is part of the conversation that I will have in the future with judges. If someone's like, I'm going to move here, no, I'm going to move here, no, I'm going to advance, no, I'm not going to advance. I think that at least having a discussion with the player in question about it at the time is probably better than letting them do whatever they want. You know what I mean? Assuming that obviously that entirely up to the event judges. But if we can pull somebody aside and be like, hey man, if you that's very sloppy. You shouldn't do that, generally speaking. I think that's a very helpful discussion that a lot of players have. And especially for folks, some people like literally don't even know that they're doing it, right? They're just like sort of actively moving through their turn while they're playing. Even though it is technically incorrect. It can be viewed by other people as like skullduggery if you're moving your models around a bunch of different times, which did happen during that event, or during those games. And I don't think that there was any over measuring. To be clear, I don't think that there was any mismeasuring that occurred, I do think that it was it didn't look good. I will say, especially Renegade Raiders, all the models move so fast that you basically have like full control over where you can go within a reasonable area. But after you like remove your model a bunch of different times, obviously it looks like you're trying to get advantages out of it. They should take the ice skating rinks to get some more air conditioning. Yeah, I know that some of the ballrooms had air conditioning working, but the main one got pretty toasty once the event was going on. What are my goals as far as streaming tournaments? Do I want to keep as it's been or ramp up? I think I would like to ramp up for sure. I basically this year, a peek behind the curtain. I've invested a bunch into my setup, so I probably spent a couple $1,000s buying new equipment over the course of the year. And it would be awesome if I could recoup that, I guess. And a lot of times it's I'm not very good with money, chat. I don't know if that's needs to be said, but I look at other streamers. I'm like, I see a thing that they have, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I want one of those. I want a pivot camera. I want an interactive score sheet. I want a better microphone system, and then I just go and buy it. So I don't know. It's like I feel inadequate if I don't have all the stuff, of all the toys. So yeah, I would like to do more events to help me get over that hump for sure. I do have, I have a tip thing. It might have a command for it. Does that work? No. Okay. I forget what my tip link is, chat. I have a tip link through Stream Elements, which should come up on the text to speech. I don't know why I forgot what it is. It used to be in my video descriptions, and then I took it out because they were too long and I didn't like them. YouTube's weird about video descriptions too. They tend to break links in there. Oh, it should be. Actually, that command should have worked, actually. Maybe my robot's turned off today. It's Columbus Day. It's on holiday. Tip? More like rip? Alright, I think I found it. Nope, just kidding. Alright, I have no idea. I'm gonna stop looking for it. Sarn's Hero, first GT was a lot of fun. Hell yeah, dude. Oh, there's the tip. No, the robot did turn on. Yay! All right. Yeah. Okay. There's the link, chat. It is in the chat. Exclamation point tip. Hey, $20. A friendly tech priest. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. You're the best. Hearing he broke multiple people's models. Yeah, I think also there's just like a level. I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I would. I think that is like unfortunate, but I don't think it's something that you can necessarily like. Some people are just flamboyant with their movement, you know. I do that too. I tend to physically enunciate a lot of times, and what I will do is if there is tall terrain on the table, I will be talking with my hands, and then I will punch the terrain, and I will send it flying. And it's a personal problem of mine that has been part of my life, literally for the entirety of my existence. And so being like, oh, this guy broke a bunch of people's models, I don't think, to be clear, is at any point a something that is problematic.
Keep up the awesome work, dude. Look forward to seeing your next BFS.
Tryhard 40k, thank you so much for the super chat, my guy. I'm looking forward to BFS too. Honestly, the event staff is like so amazing over there that it's exciting to go every time. It's also not super far for me, which is good. Although I am moving house, I think in January, so it might be a little bit farther. Although I think I'm just going to the other side of New York, so I think it's probably okay. If I'm not streaming the team tournament, do you want to join your team for it? I will give you a solid maybe for that. It is tough for me to get out to play events. I actually have not played an event. I've not played a GT in person since the 8th edition Tyranid Codex was still legal. So we're going on like 4 years now, I think. And that was rough when the 8th edition Codex was legal. Whoa, Westy with the gifted memberships. Damned Legion, Long Shadow, Brian Coleman, Greg Gonzalez, Peter Strode, Brett Armitage, Caleb Boder, Mike Peck, Jacob Durant. Is that Jane, Lorila, Jose Gomez? Congratulations on getting your memberships. Westy, thank you for the support. You guys are amazing. You guys have been incredible. So other setup for casting game looks legit. Yeah, so a lot of that stuff was added for Crucible. I got like professional stands and equipment and stuff. I was a little worried because it kept moving over the course of that event, over BFS, and I realized it was because the table was shifting. As the players would bump into it, it kept moving. So I was like, no, my expensive professional like scaffolds are like slipping. Like, no, actually, there's the table topper moving around, which is very funny. I should have taped the table topper down. I think on top of the table that would have helped a lot. But I wasn't there when they put it down. Set up a TV for people there to watch. Yeah, and the next thing I'd like to do is expand that a little bit. Either a bigger TV or even a projector with a screen. Because what I'd like to do is have events, if the space allows, of course, is have events have like a watch area. One thing that was a little awkward in that venue was that where the space that I had to set up the TV was sort of near where the players were. And unfortunately, if I have the audio pipe through the TV, then the players can hear it, which obviously we don't want to do because if I'm commentating something about an interaction, that can change the game state, and that's totally, we do not want to give the players any additional information as they're watching the game or as they're playing the game. Not to mention it's distracting too. So I had the audio off that time around, but I would like to, if I could extend the range a little bit, I would like to get it to like maybe where the judge table was in that venue. And then have the opportunity for players for like participants at the event to be able to like hear the audio and go watch the game. I think that also just like it's a value add for the event too, right? It makes the event feel like more competitive, right?
Do you have time for a list review? Finished up 2,000 points of Eldar. Finally felt okay with building up the faction since Eldar seem more balanced. Tested versus Wolf Jail. Bikes out traded Thundercav.
I could do a list review. So shoot it over to me in Discord, and I will take a peek. I do think that Eldar, I don't know, we're in like a period of Eldar renaissance, I feel like. I don't know what changed really, but they feel like they're in a pretty okay spot in the metagame. I think it's been long enough that Eldar, like since Eldar were in fucking just pants on head ridiculous, that people are like willing to go back and try the faction again now. And I think that they're in a good spot balance wise, you know what I mean? Like they have a lot of different builds. They're not too overpowered. They're actually hard to play. But I think they're very rewarding. Also, indirect fire being nerfed a bunch of times is super good for Eldar. That also helps us too, I think. When do I expect points changes? I think the large events in the next weeks were the ones in the past weeks. So we just got through LGT, and we got through US Open Tampa, which did get canceled, unfortunately, for all the people who are going down there, thanks to Hurricane Milton. That was this past weekend, so I would hazard a guess that they were holding points changes until after those events had been played. I sort of assumed that it would be the week prior and that they would use it for USO Tampa, but maybe they wanted to have additional data from US Open Tampa and from LGT in order to make their changes. But I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to get it on Thursday. Well, a sneaking suspicion, I hope so, and that's what would make sense. But I feel like that I have said that every week in October and been like, hey, it's been 4 months since the last update. Can we have an update, please? Please, sir. Just a crumb of update. And we haven't gotten it, so who knows? I would assume that it would be this Thursday. Could have had it out in the hall. Oh, I bet I could have done that, actually. Ooh, that would have been sick. I do want to... All right, my cat. Oh, my God. Ooh, she's so touch-starved because I wasn't here this weekend. Poor baby. An extension cord plugged into another extension cord. Really, it's the HDMI cable. So that TV is like hooked up directly into the stream. It is an internet TV, so I think theoretically, if it was on my Wi-Fi puck, I could have just piped the stream to it. But then it's like got on a delay and it eats my data. This way of doing it is more efficient, I guess. But it also means that I have like a 50-foot radius I can be in. RTT this weekend pushed list entry to Thursday night, so you can use the new points. Hell yeah, dude. It's interesting for RTTs to have pre-submitted lists. It's actually very rare. I know a couple in my area used to do that, and they have almost entirely stopped. Am I Inky's favorite? I think so. There's nobody else in here, so she she used to live with my mom, and I think she was not quite as clingy, so I think I'm her favorite. All right. Ryan has sent me the list. Let me take a peek. I'm going to put this in a paste bin, chat. Oops. Ah! All right, here we are. So we've chosen the Battle Host Detachment. Interesting. Wow. We've got a regular-ass Autarch. You do save like 50 points of the guy off the Autarch Wheelieber. God damn it, cat. You're literally standing in front of the screen. Double Farseer Skyrunner. Double Warlock Skyrunner. So we're just taking additional guys for guide. Also opens you to assassination, but I don't know how much you care about that, to be honest. Guardian Defenders. So I assume that that's for the Autarch to hide in. Rangers, double Shroud Runners, fucking love them. Skyweavers, double Swooping Hawk, Void Weaver, triple Warwalker, double Wind Riders. So I wonder if do you run into a tension with the second Wind Rider squad with Fire and Fading? Because it feels like that is a unit that essentially requires Fire and Fade to be worthwhile. And having two of them means that one of them may be out in the open. I guess, like, you might be able to cut some corners, and if you have, like, a perfect setup, you can just use one to, like, attrition utility and stuff in the middle without exposing it, and then use the second one to actually push with Fire and Fade. But I do wonder if like the second 400 point investment that can't access Fire and Fate is worth it. Because the other thing you could bring too, right, is an avatar, and I feel like that's such a big deal. Although we don't have any foot farseers, so maybe it's less good. I do love the Weeping Stone Warlock Skyrunner. So the Warlock Skyrunner plus the Farseer Skyrunner plus the Shroud Runners. For those who don't know, the edification of the folks in chat, this whole combination is incredible. The Warlock Skyrunner gives the unit ignore cover. They give reveal. They can also, I believe, make you always in cover, but the most important one is they give you ignore cover. So it's a bunch of AP1 shuriken catapults, which is usually just whatever. But you get ignore cover, and then the Shroud Runners run up and they point at something and they give you lethal hits against it. So we're shooting 27 plus the character attacks, AP1 ignore cover, lethal hits, full hit rerolls. With sustained as well, I believe. They're lethal sustained. So the volume of shooting from these units is just incredible. It's like nuts. And that's what's good. That's what's good about them. But I feel like you have diminishing returns on the second brick of them because they are so expensive. Second Wind Rider squad shoots at 24 inches. I guess the other question... So the Wind Riders get... they get reroll targeting enemies on objectives, right? Is there a datasheet ability? I'm gonna double check my my math here. So here's the question. Do you need Farseers in both? Could we save 90 points and an Assassinate trigger? Not that it really matters, to be honest, because the Warlock Skyrunner's there, but like theoretically there's an argument where somebody who thinks they can kill you can take fixed. To get to cut the second Farseer. And then what's the range on guide? Is it 12? Because if the units operate nearby each other, whichever one is shooting onto an objective theoretically doesn't need guide, right? And if you are not shooting onto an objective with the second one, you could guide the first one or vice versa. You know what I mean? Like you could use them to support each other. When does an RTT list normally do? Morning of, yeah. Yeah, that's how all my RTTs work out. One Farseer gave guide to the Harlequin bikes. I guess that's fair. Like, you can guide other stuff. The Shroud Runners also good with guide, because they actually shoot a ton of times, and they can benefit from the lethal hits as well. They shoot their scatter lasers, it's whatever it is, 6 scatter laser shots, plus the long rifle attacks. The Shroud Runners actually should have, like, just, like, dump in sort of insane value. Criminally underplayed unit. I'll die on that hill. This unit's like insane. It's like super nuts, and it's crazy to me that nobody plays them. I think part of the downside is they're really big. They're physically like super large. A Shroud Runner is the same size as like a Void Weaver. So I guess you have guide outlets for the second Farseer. I guess that's not too bad. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have like much else I can input, to be honest. If the double Wind Riders is is working, then that, like my one concern would be that you're kind of like tomato souping a little bit. You have, I think, enough other attacks that it's probably fine. Where if stuff is resilient to the shuriken cannons, then the warwalkers can pick it up. But there is a concern, I guess, that you hit something that's like AOC -1 damage. Like a Deathwing Knight does not give a shit about a Wind Rider squad. They hit you at like coming and going, you know what I mean? They're like, I'm going to save on 2s regardless of what you do. And it's -1 damage, so you have to convert 4 full attacks to kill a single model. And that gets a little bit awkward. You can Blade Storm maybe and like hope for the best, but it gets really awkward. That would be my one concern. But if that feels like, if you feel that that's something you can play around, then I think it's probably okay. Can the Skyrunners take cannons? No. No, they're stuck with catapults. That's too bad, actually. Is it the Autarch Skyrunner who can switch his gun? No, they're just always stuck on catapults. Wild. Okay, well, that sucks. You can throw God on a Warwalker since they can keep up with the bikes. Yeah, but they don't really need it, right? Like, they just have, like, a Battle Host reroll for a Warwalker is basically full rerolls. Theoretically, you're not necessarily, like, yeah, it helps if you flub both Bright Lance shots, but the chances of that happening are very rare. Getting one floating hit reroll is usually good enough on the Warwalkers. But like the Void Weaver shoots enough times that it's good there. Like even like the utility stuff, the Swooping Hawks and the Shroud Runners, like it's also good there. So like I think you have enough outlets for it that it's okay. The Farseer gun is amazing. Yeah, but not the... It's unfortunate that they're stuck with the catapults, though, is what I'm saying. So they get outranged by their own unit, right? So, like, a lot of times they aren't shooting because they are literally out of range with their main cannon. Obviously, their psychic powers are like, nuts good. Especially because you're already benefiting from all the unit effects, right? So you're shooting... Like D6 blast, strength 6, AP2, D3 damage, full hit rerolls, lethal hit, ignore cover. Which becomes like very good. Plus potentially another 2 shuriken catapult shots. Valdor's in chat. What's up, dude? What's up, my dude? I like the look of this list, to be honest, Joe. It's 5 out of 7 would play. Is the Void Weaver in here because we ran out of the ability to take more Warwalkers? I don't know if I've looked hard enough at a Void Weaver offensive profile. For some reason, they don't have stealth. It's really weird. Oh, they have smoke, though. That's good. They shoot 2 shots, strength 12, AP3, 4 damage, 36 inches. Yeah, so we're basically like, it's a poor man's Bright Lance. And they make an enemy take a battle shock test. Got him. Yeah, I figured that there would be a Reddit thread about those games for sure. We had a whole discussion at the beginning about it. I think that I should have had a discussion with him after the first game that he played, and I think that one takeaway that I've had from the weekend is that I need to be more willing, at least to discuss sportsmanship stuff with players. Maybe not necessarily at the table, but especially after the game. And we had a discussion about it after the second game, but that's like too late at that point, right? After the first time we watch it happen, we just be like, hey man, you gotta calm down. And I was I was doing stuff. I was busy. I didn't do that, and I should have. It was unfortunate. It was unfortunate to have him on for 2 games. Void Weavers either do great damage or nothing. It's the classic. That's classic for every game, every unit in 40k, yeah, you know. Void Weaver better than his Viper. Yeah, the Viper's only in there because you ignore cover, right? But if the whole idea is that we are revealing with the Warlock Skyrunners, then it doesn't really matter. A Viper's like a totally different unit, right? Because the Viper is like a support unit rather than a killer. And if most of the things that we're shooting already ignore cover, it doesn't matter so much. They're pretty cheap, though, which is nice. But they have less attacks than any of the other, like, Bright Lance platforms, essentially. It makes total sense to me. I think I like the Void Reaver. I guess the other thing that you could include could be a baby Skyweaver unit, right? In place of the Void Weaver, potentially. If you don't feel like having another big cannon shot is good, the baby Skyweaver units are really good just for utility and stuff. I guess that could be a consideration too, because you can use them to like move block. You're not worried about like trading them away because they're relatively inexpensive, and so being able to like throw 2 Skyweavers in front of somebody's army or something and just like prevent them from moving or running and grabbing engage on all fronts is super useful. I think that would be maybe the other consideration I would have if you are ambivalent on the Void Weaver. Yeah, I don't think there's an issue in general with horde lists. I think that like individual players can have trouble playing large model count armies. Just as like depends on your play style. I also think that accursed cultists are probably particularly bad at it because they're like a unit that has been specifically like purpose built to take a lot of time to resolve on clock, right? Because it's a multi-profile unit. They have like 4 different defensive profiles inside of the unit with an invulnerable save. So you always are taking saves and also a feel no pain that then also moves reactively every time they're attacked. Right. So like you get sandbagged on every part of the process. So I think it's a combination of maybe a player who was not necessarily prepared to play a high model count army. And he did say that he was like, when I was talking with him, he was like, yeah, I was so used to playing like units of Chosen, where you just have 6 dudes, like, I'll disembark a transport in advance to charge you. Okay, cool, done. And I have literally streamed Johnny in the past. And in the past, there have not been issues, at least as far as to my recollection. And you can go back and look at those games. I think I streamed with Everwinter maybe. And I remember the games being super fun to watch, and the ones this weekend were very different. But I think it could be a playstyle issue compounded by the fact that accursed cultist units very specifically take additional time to resolve. I think it's I don't think it's like entirely fair to say that like horde armies are totally fine. I think horde armies are fine. I think very specific horde armies for very specific players could be a problem. But that is, to be clear, something that I think a player needs to identify about themselves. So if you're playing an army and you're like, I'm struggling to play this in time, you need to change your list. Either get good or play something else. That's my take. Best way to beat a horde player is use the clock. Yeah, until you hit a good one, and then the other thing about playing against horde armies is that not only does the horde army maybe take a long time to execute, but also you have to kill it. So like they're like, I brought 200 models, and you're like, not only do you have to play 200 models, but I have to roll out 200 attacks. And let me tell you, most of the time, running 200 models forward is easier than rolling 200 hit wound like damage rolls. So you can oftentimes be sandbagged by a 200 model army, and that can like go poorly for you too if you're like, oh no, the 20 orc boys have charged and engaged all my models, and now all my tanks have to roll attacks into you. Like, you know, things get a little bit funky. Should we talk about some lists, chat? I think I might be done talking about the Battle for Salvation event. I enjoyed the event. I think the coverage went well. The games were kind of okay. They weren't whatever, but that's always a crapshoot when you get to an event. And I think I wish I had stepped in earlier on the sportsmanship issues. But I do have, if we want to, we can take a peek at some other events. Oh my god, why is my screen so weird right now? Oh, because I zoomed in probably. Let's fix it. We'll fix it live. We're doing it live. Here we go, chat. Ah, no, it's so small. There we go. That's much better. Managed 10th at a GT this weekend with Tyranids. So yeah, well, speaking of Tyranids, shout out Sam Pope, by the way. The big #1 with Tyranids. I do wish that we had watched some of his games earlier in the event, because he did say he had some really, really tough ones. It looks like he had a relatively contentious game against, I think against Malachi Fowler, also Thousand Sons, if I remember correctly. There were some judge calls at that table I was watching when while it was going on. But pretty interesting list. The man loves his... Speaking of horde armies, the man loves his horde armies. 90 Gaunts, plus a Turvagon to respawn them. And a bunch of Exocrines. This is real, like, 9th edition Turvagon Tyranids. If anyone remembers the, like, ludicrous Turvagon lists, where you take, like, a brick of 30 Termagants and you put 5+ invulnerable save, -1 to be hit, like, perma cover on them. And then they just stood in the center of the table with a 5+ feel no pain and, like, lived forever. And then if you ever didn't kill them, they would basically all regenerate thanks to Tyranid. That's kind of the same deal. Cullen Burns did play Johnny in the finals there. It looked like it was a really close game, 57-73. And they said that game was like very back and forth. Pretty wild list. It's Avatar, Death Gesture with Fate's Messenger, classic unit. Phoenix Gem Farseer, probably just by himself. Fuegan plus Karandros, the old Candy Man. Triple Falcons with triple Fire Dragon units in them. Incredible. Double Shroud Runners, Swooping Hawks, double Wraith Lord. And only lost in the final game. What a list, chat. Eldar is so cool. The screen is cut off? What? No! I thought I had just fixed that. I guess I made the problem worse. What have I done? Alright, let's see that. Can we still see all the events? Alright. That's going to be how it is there, I guess. I think that it was set up for the other website, but I don't have it. Yeah, I'll run through the list again real quick. Avatar of Cain, DJ with Face Messenger, Farseer with Phoenix Gem, Fuegan, Candyman, triple Falcones, triple Fire Dragons to go inside the Falcons, double Shroud Runners, Swooping Hawks, double Wraith Lord. Double Wraith Lord. By the way, folks, my game this weekend, or my game today, which I actually need to update in my calendar. Where'd it go? What? It has disappeared from my calendar. What the fuck? Alright. I'm just gonna put it there again. We're gonna half-ass it. Has been moved back or moved forward to 2 p.m. I'm gonna be playing 6 Wraith Lords on stream at 2 p.m. over on Twitch, by the way. Give me a follow over on Twitch over there. And we can keep the show going. I'm gonna be streaming like all day today. Jasper Binsky, who came and talked to me after the event, by the way. He has he and his friends have made an app called, I have his card that he gave me. I want to say it's called Wargames FX. I'm going to double check though. Yes, I nailed it. I haven't looked at the app more than what he has told me, but apparently it's an augmented reality application for your mobile cellular device that overlays terrain and objective layouts on the table. So if you show it a picture of a table, it will tell you where the terrain goes, which sounds super cool. And they're on Kickstarter, I guess. This isn't sponsored, by the way. He just came and talked to me about it. I'll drop the link to their website in the chat for the folks who want to go talk about it. But he ended up X1. Did he beat Chaos Demons? That's too bad. He did. Aw. I think that they were playing in the final game there, if I remember correctly. Rocking a Beast Boss with Follow Me Lads. A second Beast Boss. Def Killer Wartrike with Super Cyborg Body. That is a Steve Pampreen special right there, by the way. The solo Def Killer Wartrike is a classic. That man, he just hangs around. He's like 9 wounds with a 4+ feel no pain. So your opponent's like, alright, little character guy, I'll shoot him. And then he takes like 1 damage, and you're like, maybe I won't. And then he just like essentially has lone operative because your opponent just forgets to attack him because he's so impossible to kill. It's very funny. He doesn't do that much damage, but he has a good utility piece. Gaskell Thraka, double war bosses, 30 beast snaggas, a big brick of 20 and a unit of 10, double truck, double battle wagon, carry all the knobs and the big units around, flash kits, 2 Gretchen units, a mega knob unit for Gaskell, double knobs, double stormy boys. Joe, you rewatched the Agents game? Dude, people were asking literally all weekend. We got updates about your about the Imperial Agents every single game. Every single round. That was a fun time. Agents are fire. Samuel Lucidi went X1 with Death Guard. This event. That's kind of fun. Oh God! What the fuck is this? Oh, you lost too, Jasper? Yeah, that was too bad because people were really rooting for you, man. People were... This is the most competitive 40k list I've ever seen. This is the secret sauce. You have to just like export a JSON file directly into BCP so nobody can understand what your list does. And you're like, I don't know, it's a legal 40k list. If you open this up in New Recruit, it comes up normal. I don't know what you're talking about. Why can't you understand it? You can kind of read what it says. Yeah. This is the new version. If anybody played back in 8th edition, the classic was you could submit, and I think you still can, you could submit a photo as your list. So the classic was to print your list on like printer paper, spill coffee on it, and take like a really blurry, like angled photo of it. And be like, I submitted it. I don't know why you can't understand what it says. It's very clear. That was always a classic. Just like a really poorly cropped, out of focus picture of like you holding your army list like crumpled up. That was classic. There used to be a local player to me, a relatively local player, who's actually very good, but who would always do that, like as a troll. Just a mess. It's like a cell phone picture of your screen with the list on it. Oh no, you do the classic screen. You take the picture like of the phone in a mirror, right? You take you put your list on your phone, and then you take a picture of your phone with another phone and upload that. That's the secret sauce. Preferred JSON interpretations as tier unit. That's my preferred unit in the game. Incredible. Do I feel like Orc win rate can be fixed by points cuts? That's an interesting question. I'm always worried because orcs have this perennial issue where they are so hyper focused on doing one thing, and that's declaring a wa and then murdering you with a knife. That when that strategy is strong, orcs are strong. But other orc game plans, which make them a more well-rounded faction and actually improve their win rate more consistently, are usually suffer in exchange for that one really good, like being really good at one thing. And the problem is that orcs get really abusive in the situations where you cut points on those that other stuff until it is universally spammed, right? Like this, you can think about when orcs were like, the times when orcs have been ridiculously strong. It's been like mech gun spam, when every list was like 18 mech guns. Like bomber spam, buggy spam. Anytime that orcs get really incredibly dumb, it's because they take the non-run forward and stab you units, and they make them super cheap. And I don't even think, like, when the Codex released in 10th edition, I don't even think they did that well. They had like an above average win rate, I think, but it wasn't that amazing. And then they got nerfed anyway for no reason. And I think you have to be very careful about how you value those two things. There's the dial is extremely easy to nudge too far. I would like to see maybe mechanical changes before we start cutting points on things, but I would like to see their ranged attacks get cheaper. Because I do think that one downside of orcs right now is that they're so melee focused. They're like World Eaters, but if World Eaters only got Blessings of Corn for one round, you know what I mean? So it's like the game plan's very similar, but they're so much less consistent than like World Eaters are, and that's a real problem for the faction. And I would love to see them have a little more of a focus in ranged attacks. Like a World Eater army can just like have a Lord of Skulls in it if it wants to. And orcs don't really have that, and I would love them to get the opportunity to do something like that. But right now, all of their ranged options are like really trash. So I don't know. I think it would be interesting to see stuff like the knots, like the Mork and Gorkanaut, get cut like a lot. You might run into like a list skew sort of problem, but it would be interesting to allow them to take like the one or two big super heavies that can like apply damage outside of the Wa turn consistently, in place of just taking more like boys who just do the normal stuff. Also, play more kill rigs, orc players. Those things are amazing. Don't see enough play, in my opinion. As someone who has played 40k for a while, do I feel 40k has too many models on the table across the armies? Do you mean like, are the model counts in armies too high? I don't believe so. I think 10th edition has done a pretty good job at reducing army size. Every edition since like 7th, as far as I know, has dramatically reduced army size. And I think I like the 10th edition size the most out of all the editions that I played. 8th edition was huge. Armies were enormous. But that game was so lethal that you had to have big armies because everyone died instantly if they were in line of sight. 10th edition, you do feel like you're playing a little bit more of a strike team. We're putting together a team. And I think it works out. I don't think that the armies are too big. To answer the question. More models needs bigger table. Yeah, there is a little bit of an unspoken issue to scale creep in 40k, which is that there is like a limit to where models can reasonably occupy space. And with 40k models getting bigger, if they increase the army size, that like increases sort of exponentially. If you're increasing the army size of an army that is already a larger model, like per model size, that those compound, and the amount of physical like room that your army takes up becomes larger and larger and larger. And that is theoretically a huge problem, because you start running into situations where like you can no longer attack with your melee models because they physically can't fit into the area where they want to attack. And that does happen. Drukhari feel too hoardy? That may be a Drukhari issue for sure. Drukhari are sort of independently, like their units are really weak, so they need to have a lot of like MSU. And it might be that they just have a lot of small units. I don't even think Drukhari armies on a model count perspective tend to be large, but transport focused armies do feel like they feel like they're larger because they have both vehicles and infantry in them, right? Like instead of having a unit of 10 guys, you have a unit of 5 guys and a tank. So you're basically like your unit count is twice as big, and the dimensions of your army tend to expand too. Yeah, I would say Thursday for points, for almost assuredly. I would be shocked if it wasn't Thursday. To be honest. The issue with Drukhari is disembarking is time intensive. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I don't disagree. YouTube has been doing this thing recently. There's like a weird interaction with Chrome. This is totally a non sequitur, but it just happened to me. So weird issue with Chrome where it crashes my Chrome, or it overloads Chrome's memory or something. So Chrome keeps disconnecting from YouTube. It's bizarre. Not the stream or anything, just literally my ability to read chat. All right, we wanted to talk about Astra Militarum, right? Is that what we were looking at, chat? Stompa points cut? Stompa points cut, let's go! We need that big Stompa energy back. Marines have a lot of models. They do sometimes. Like, unironically, one of the best horde armies in the game is Black Templars. Like, for sure, they do take a lot of miniatures. Marines always end up having the worst of the army size creep though, because they always get. There comes a point in every edition, in every edition's life, chat. There comes a point when you realize that tactical Space Marines are fucking trash. And you have to cut their points at a ridiculous amount to make them playable. And they're always trash because it's just a bad unit archetype in 40k. The expensive medium infantry utility unit with no good guns. That doesn't actually do any damage whatsoever. And so they end up getting points cut, and Marines turn into a horde army again. Every edition it happens. You get to the point where they're just like, fuck it. A Space Marine costs 11 points. And you're like, I could bring 200 of them. Let's go. That always happens. Last edition, it was Grey Knights. Grey Knights did that. They were like, Grey Knight strike squads are really not very good because it's this weird combined arms unit. What if they were free? And then every Grey Knights army was a horde of like 70 guys. All right. We'll talk about some Astra Militarum chat. Little Cadian command squad action. Gonskos, Lord Solar, Double Tank Commanders. With Grand Strategist. Woo! Cadian Shock Troopers. So Lord Solar, I guess, is attaching to the Cadian squad today. So we're not using their mortar. That's what we determined, is that they don't mortar people very good. Because they don't get mortar teams. Which is sad. 2 Catachy Jungle Fighter, 3 Catachy Jungle Fighter, 4 Catachy Jungle Fighter, double Chimera, triple Bulgrin, only 9 though. 9 Bulgrin total. 2 Leman Russ Battle, oh, excuse me. 1 Leman Russ Battle Tank, 1 Leman Russ Vanquisher, double Tempestus Aquilons. All right, first of all, curious that they allowed Tempestus Aquilons, because I'm not sure. I think they are of currently questionable legality. But cool. All right, sick. Second of all, cool. Nice to see that they already have success. 90-point utility unit that can go anywhere on the table and also shoot a flamethrower and do actions is pretty cool. I don't know, chat. That seems like it's sweet. Plus, they're a 4+ save, like 10 wound, 10 bottle unit. They actually don't die instantly. So they may live and then get to do a thing again. You get to shoot your Sentry Flamer one more time. I don't know. The more I think about Tempestus Aquilons, the more I think that they're insane. I would not be shocked if that unit ended up being higher than 90 points. Yeah. Yeah, like the direct comparison is Inceptors, right? And Inceptors are like 140. How much is an Inceptor today? Are they 130? They're a lot. 130. So you don't get the good gun, right? And you are unironically easier to kill. But you get a flamethrower and you save 40 points. And you can throw a grenade. That's also cool. So, although I think somebody pointed out that I don't believe you can throw the grenade the turn you come in if you use the sentry drone, or the little sentry attack. Because I think grenade specifies that you cannot have attacked that turn. It's very weird. I think I misspoke when I did my deep dive on them. There's a bizarre interaction where the grenade actually doesn't really matter that much, but it is a keyword that you retain. But like you would play an Inceptor squad for 40 less points if it had a worse gun, right? Like you would just do that, and that's basically what Tempestus Aquilons are. Because 90% of the time what Inceptor squads are doing is shooting you with a good gun that is nice to have, but mostly completing a secondary that you could not have completed otherwise, or movement blocking your opponent. And the fact that the Tempestus Aquilons are just like, hey, what's up, guys? Rapid Ingress, 3-inch Deep Strike, you can't charge my army anymore. Feels pretty strong, I don't know. I think the amount of utility that this unit has is going to be insane. Inceptor should be 120. Yeah, maybe. I was going to be like, I don't know if you can cut Inceptors, but also we're talking about Space Marines, which are like just the most underperforming army in the entire game right now, so I don't know how much we can say that maybe we shouldn't buff Space Marines. I think you definitely should buff Space Marines. All right, hey, how about this, chat? Inceptors at 120, but you can't play them in Space Wolves or Dark Angels or Blood Angels. Only Codex Space Marines get 120 point Space Inceptors. Dom made low. Got a Renegade Raiders. Chaos Lord, Dark Omni, Cypher. This looks like normal Renegade Raider stuff. It is! Cool. There are Warp Talons. That's sweet. SSG GT 50 player. Kale Abrahamson also one of the Tyranids. Tyranids killed it this weekend. Hot diggity damn. This is a Vanguard Onslaught. Only one Gene Stealer unit. A Broodlord with Stalkers. That gives his... I believe that gives the unit... or that gives him the bonus against a single target. The Chameleonic is the unit gets cover and he gets stealth. But that is A-OK. That's good on a Winged Tyrant. Winged Tyranid Prime with Hunting Grounds. Another Winged Tyranid Prime. 2 Exocrines. Rupture Cannon Tyranifex. It's nice to see, I think, a little bit more of a well-rounded Vanguard Onslaught. For a long time, we were just all in on the melee-only Vanguard Onslaught, but this army feels much more well-rounded, which I think is probably the platonic ideal. Forcing your opponent to contend with double Execrate in the backline is very useful. It's a useful capacity to have. Incubi are just nuts. They are extremely good. Bugle Bat Reps running the Bugle's Big Bash. Number 3, George McCullough did win with Drukhari. Speaking of Drukhari, Archon, Lilith, Esbrax, Urian, Rathgarth. Although we are seeing, and it was interesting to hear the players talk on round 4 yesterday, because Zach Point, the first Zach that we streamed at BFS, is traditionally an Eldar player, and I guess has been playing Skysplinter Assault. I don't guess he's been playing Skysplinter Assault. I literally played him a couple weeks ago when he was playing Skysplinter Assault, and I was playing a Mimi list with 12 Tyrant Guard in it, which was some disaster. Assimilation Swarm is really bad, chat. Friends don't let friends play Assimilation Swarm. That detachment sucks. But he was rocking Courts of the Archon, and I think we streamed him recently running double Courts of the Archon, double or triple. And using the whatever it is, like Death from Above or whatever, the stratagem where you disembark a transport and get sustained hits too on a Cabalite unit to get the big Court of the Archon team with the Cabalite Warrior Heavy Weapon Squad plus the Archon with full rerolls and sustain 2 and ignore cover. And he was saying that just like vaporized a Cursed Kelta squads. Just hop out of a transport, just ping that whole unit to death. Got Lilith Asprax in there. We got Urian Rekharth, Cabalite Warrior Squad, and a Witch Squad. Double Venoms. Big Court of the Archon. Big Kronos. A big Grotesque unit. Whoa! That's cool. It's been a while since we've seen Grotesques, but a big Flamer Squad may be what the doctor ordered these days. Let's look at the Grotesque datasheet real quick, because it has been a hot minute since they had like old school Dark Technomancer liquefiers. They have a 4+ fight on death, 4 attack, strength 5 AP1 2 damage, that's fine. But also strength 4 AP1 torrent. For what is this? 27 points a model? Toughness 5, 4 wounds, the 5+ feel no pain. There's like some raw efficiency happening right there. Their attacks are kind of whatever, right? But for 27 points a model, that's really good. That's only like 5 points more than a heavy intercessor. For T5 4 wounds, 6 up, 5 up. And a flamethrower. I could see it. I guess this Lance helps this too. Although I don't know if you can get into a transport with a full unit of 6. Can a Raider carry 6 Grotesques? I feel like they cap out at 5. Oh no, they cap out at 3. Jesus. Okay. Alrighty then. Yeah. So like they're just ground pounding then, I guess, right? That is wild. Stats for points, though. They are a stat stick. Double Mandrakes, Reavers, double Scourges, triple Talos, and a Void Raven Bomber. Triple 2 Talos units, with Haywire Blasters. Double Scourges are all Dark Lances. Yeah, so we're like, who cares about Haywire Blasters with the Scourges? Because we're just going to take them on the Talos. Fuck it. This is a cool list, chat. It's very different. We're not even really using the Sky... Oh, it's Realspace raid, of course. Just kidding. It's not even Skysplinter. What am I talking about? Skysplinter Assault. Get that shit out of here. This is a Realspace raid. I think I might have misspoken there earlier. I think we were talking about Skysplinter Assault, and I just assumed that it was. But it's definitely a Realspace raid. So we get the additional pain tokens for having all these guys on the table. And that also means that we get insensible to pain, right? Man, we won. We got a Realspace raid win. Although ironically, I think Realspace raid has one of the highest win percentages of any detachment, if I remember correctly, because they the only players who still play it are incredibly good. So you get you're 24 wounds with a 6+ invulnerable save and a 5+ feel no pain and -1 to be wounded for a CP. And then I believe Urian heals them, right? He can regenerate grotesques, but he can also heal 3 wounds. Are there grotesques in the list? Or excuse me, regenerate the other guys. Shit, what are they called? Homunculi? No, Rax. Jesus, I'm bad at this game. I'm sure I've played Warhammer 40,000 in the miniatures game before. There are no Rax to regenerate, so he's just running around. He does regenerate on a 2+, so he comes back to life when you kill him. So he can just hang out by himself, and he's just a regenerating character, so he's just sort of annoying to kill. But then he can hang out next to a big unit that he can also heal. Building Mono Slaanesh. Mono Slaanesh Demons? Mono Slaanesh Demons is an unironic competitive archetype, though. I streamed a Mono Slaanesh Demon army at ATC. It wasn't a team event, so it's like a lot skewier because you're trying to build for specific matchups, but it definitely has play. This list fucking rules, by the way, chat. This is a sick list. It's so wild because the Homunculus Coven stuff has been so underplayed. Individual portions of it get played, right? Talos get played in like between 1 and 4 Talos get played in Skysplinter. And Urian sees play just as a guy sometimes. And occasionally you see Rax just as like a unit that's cheap and has a 2 OC. But I don't think we have seen a list that goes so hard into it. With all the Talos, and also all the grotesques, and also the character. But if you're playing Realspace Raid, you're for sure going to play Urian anyway, because he unlocks that additional pain token too. He has the good regen, not like Fabulous Bill. Is his regen different than Biles? Fabius Bile is a 2+ with full runes remaining. Oh, instantly though. I see. Not end of phase. I wish that they would keyword that. Right? Because theoretically, it's just the Celestine ability, right? They just do a Celestine, but they all work a little differently. Whether, like, depending on how many wounds remaining, what the timing is, just fucking USR this shit. This Firing Deck and Scuttling Walker. Fucking USR that, please. Why are we talking about Scuttling Walkers that move through, like, differently through terrain? It's so frustrating. I actually literally did not realize that, chat. I'm glad that I did not play a Fabulous Bile player because I literally would not have known. That's so insane. It's like the new Resurrection Protocol, right? Where you the Necron unit, like a Necron character, just dies and then comes back and then dies again immediately. Yeah, end of the phase. God, that's frustrating. Oh, man. First of all, why is it a 2+? Why are we doing 2+ stuff? That's stupid. It's such a huge ability. Just make them come back, roll a d6, and they come back with that many wounds. Just make it be a wound thing. Don't make it modal. And then have it be that way for everyone. Make it work exactly the same for every single instance of a end-of-phase regeneration. I don't know. But it's not like I'm a game designer, chat. Breachstorm.com. Ooh, some more Tyranids at this one. Speaking of Tyranids, we're on a we're Tyranid pilled today, I guess. Invasion Fleet, Broodlord Hive Tyrant, no Nero Tyrant yet. Gargoyles, Hormagaunts, Biovore, triple Exocrine, 10 Gene Stealers. Gene Stealers in an Invasion Fleet? They're slow, though. How do you ever get them to melee? Double Maliceptor. This is an Invasion Fleet, right? Yeah. Okay. My melee bioweapon warriors, no winged Hive Tyrant. What is happening in this list? 2 Maliceptors, 2 Tyrant FXs. 3 triple Exocrines. Well, that's normal stuff. I guess, like, it is a gun line, and it just has a bunch of dudes to stand behind the gun line and charge you if you come near it. So I actually, in that capacity, these melee units make sense. This is not an aggressively offensive list. This is a list that's going to sit in the back and poke at you with Exocrines until you get fed up and then try to fight it. And then you get killed by warriors with melee weapons. There's another one over here, too. Patty Baron. What a name. To be fair, chat, about the Fabius Bile thing, he gets like a... Doesn't he gets a once per phase damage blank and has a 5+ Fiona Pain? Like, I feel like... I don't know. It is annoying that his ability is strictly worse than other identical abilities, but also, he is harder to kill than any of those other models. I think it makes sense. We've got an Instinctive Defense Hive Tyrant, Biophagic... Oh, Jesus. Holy shit. I guess I'm in my throat. A Biophagic Float, Nero Tyrant, a Swarm Lord, a Biovore, double Exocrine, Haruspix, a Lictor, double Psychophage, big Pyrovore squad. Look at them. What are we playing today, by the way? Oh, this is a Simulation Swarm. Oh, chat. Okay, first of all, this man went 4-1 to the Simulation Swarm. That is the equivalent of winning a Super Major. This Patty Baron over here is basically the LVO champion of 2024. 2025 even. 2026. He won the first 11th edition LVO with how difficult that is to do. This detachment is so unabashedly garbage, and I will die on that hill. But good on him for making it work. Instinctive Defense on the Hive Tyrant, so he's got fights first when he's near a Simulation Swarm, or a Harvester unit, excuse me. Biophagic Flow, so it extends the range of your Harvester auras, plus the Swarm Lord. Yeah, okay, so this is we're doing all the Tyrant Guard. Swarm Lord plus the Hive Tyrant is the classic. Plus the Nero Tyrant, probably also with a Zoanthrope unit. Triple Exocrine, 1 Haruspex, double Psychophage. Psychophages are for sure the unsung heroes of this detachment, though. Since they have dropped in points from like 120, they were insane. Psychophages are actually unironically super good. They broadcast their like silly aura. They're annoyingly difficult to kill, and they have a flamethrower. They're just okay, and they have a random devastating wound melee attack. Sometimes they do 2 damage to you in melee. All the Pyovores, double Tyrant Guard, no Zoanthropes. Not that you really need them. Plus the Tyrant effects. All right, yeah, this is a very similar list I played. I think I didn't have the Exocrines, but I did have Zoanthropes, is the difference, is the one that I played. Yeah, sick. I mean, good list. The detachment's horrible, but congratulations on going 4-1 with it, dude. Oh my god. Don't think I've seen a single Toxicrine in my list reviews. When have you ever seen a Toxicrine in any list, chat? Has that literally ever happened in the history of 40K? The Toxicrine will not be good until the rules for how models work are fundamentally changed. Theoretically, right? The way that models should work is that your model is mechanically a small oval or circle on the tabletop. And that is what the rules... That's the only thing the rules look at. For positioning, for movement, for line of sight, that should be the only thing that matters. The Toxicrine is unplayable as long as that is not the case. Because this thing is literally twice the size of its base. It's fucking so bad. All right. Nurglemania over here had some interesting results. Leagues of Votann. Tim Schneider. Did we talk about Tim Schneider last week? I believe that we did, right? Did he won? I'm gonna double check myself here. He won Alliance Open last week. Am I a crazy person? Well, I was gonna look up the fucking website, but it's like dead, so just kidding. I'll double check in a sec. If so, dude's been fucking killing it, bro. Oh my god. It's got, let's see, Brokir Ironmaster with a Praising Glare, Brokir Ironmaster with Wayfarer's Grace, one Brokir Ironmaster with a Praising Glare. And the way that the list export, it puts it into like 2 sections. Bizarre. That's annoying and stupid. That's okay though. We'll forgive it just this once. An Unheard Champion with Wayfarer's Grace plus another Unheard Champion. 2 units of 10 Hearthkin Warriors. 2 units of 10 Chthonian Berserks. 10 Hernkin Jaegers. 6 Hernkin Pioneers. Just the 1 unit. Double Hecaton Land Fortress. So those are probably carrying around the Chthonian Berserks. 4 Sagittars. 4 Sagittars, chat. Let's go. Only the 1 unit of Hernkin Pioneers. I guess if your opponent is less incentivized to screen your scouting, then you actually get more use out of the Sagittor scouting. But if they're like, oh, I'm gonna lose instantly if I don't screen the scouting, then they're like gonna push it super hard. All right, I'm gonna fact check myself here, chat. Alliance Open. Tim Schneider did win it. Whoa! Back-to-back GT wins. Are you fucking kidding me? This dude is a god. Look at him go. Manuel Wayand with Necrons, Hypercrypt Legion. An Arisen Tyrant Plasmancer. A Scorpic Lord with Asteoclave Fulcrum. Plus a Silent King. 10 Immortals. 1 Spooter. 5 Death Marks. Doomsday, Monolith. Big Scorpic Destroyer unit. Double Tomb Blades. One thing I want to say about Hypercrypt Legion, and I think this is true of most uppy downy detachments, is that the fact that you are no longer worried about the positioning of your units on the table means that their list variety is way higher. Because you can play big, dumb stuff like Doomsday Arcs and the Silent King, but you can also play lots of little units that steal objectives, like the list that we see with like 1 trillion warriors in them. And I think that's rad. Hypercrypt Legion is cool, and I know lots of people don't like it, and I know it's a controversial thing to say, but I think it's actually very healthy for Necrons because they can play so many of their units in it. It makes so many different archetypes viable. Invite him on the show. I don't really do that's what we just looked at, interviews anymore. My interview videos tended to be it's very difficult to schedule interviews, and my interview videos tend to be the least watched on my channel, or at least in terms of live streams. Utano Calypsis, Kingdom War Games. Marco Esteban one with Space Wolves is the Stormlance. Here it is. Look at all these Thunderwolf Cavalry, chat. Whoa, so many Thunderwolf Cavalry. Boring. Boring. Win with something cool. Like Drukhari. Drukhari again. We got more undefeated Drukhari. How many Talos are in this one, though? No, it's a Skysplinter Assault. Double Archon plus Beastmaster, double Cavalry Warriors, triple Cavalry Warriors. Okay, fair enough. Triple Venom, double Raider. 20 Incubi. Jesus. Plus a Chronos, double Mandrake, triple Scourge, 1 unit of Talos. So it's only 2 Talos. Okay. This is kind of a normal Drukhari list. There's nothing too exciting about this one, but it does have 20 Incubi and Raiders, I assume that we are attaching the Archons into the Incubi because we don't have courts for them. And we have a no Overwatch guy. This dude, playing the Thousand Sons, by the way, this dude is a fucking nightmare. He's the least fun thing to play against because you're like, my defense against melee units is my capacity to Overwatch them with Flamers so I don't get stuck in melee. And this Archon's like, no Overwatch. I kill that whole unit. I go back in my transport. And you're just like, okay, well, guess I die. And then you're like, double doom bolt the transport. And they're like, I'm behind this wall now. And you're like, okay, well, cool. I guess I'll just explode. Good stuff. Pretty normal Skysplinter stuff. Those 3 100-point wins. That is, I would say, probably easier to do with Drukhari than a lot of factions. Because they tend to be high scoring, right? Like those really, especially, first of all, dedicated transport armies are good at primary. Because it's difficult to peel you off of objectives. First of all, you have 1 trillion objective secured units in the army, right? Because you combat squad all 3 Cavalry Warriors teams. So you're getting 3 units of like special weapon Cabalites and 3 units of 5 Splinter Rifle Cabalites. So you have 6 objective secured units that are OC2 each. And then 3 of those are in transports. So it's super difficult to kill you off objectives. And if you don't kill them off objectives, then they lock the objective permanently. And then also, they have 6 units that are like move 14 and can disembark and do actions. So you have like just incredible amounts of scoring. I mean, Drukhari just like real good because of dedicated transports that are fast and also objective secured. Incredibly good archetype. Just a very good unit to have for scoring high points. Emery Garrett, that's you? Congratulations on the win, dude. Congrats, my guy. Silent King was with a Spooter tax. I'm glad Lil Spooter gets a play. I was talking with a friend though, and they were like, they're my business partner for Breachstorm, and they have a Necron army, and they were like, they have this Reanimator, and they're like, this is my favorite model. I love this little Reanimator. I was like, oh no, that dude never gets played. Poor Reanimator. But at least the Canoptic Spooter gets played, but the Reanimator, the other Spooter, doesn't. A little sad. Saw Hellions over the weekend being played, painted amazingly, but did no damage, and then died horrifically. Yeah. Oh man, that's so. There's like it's a funny problem in 40k, right? Where 40k has such a breadth of content. It's just an endless amount of content. Plus, it has a very deep backstory. It has decades of lore, and a lot of that lore is like built up on pop culture things. So the models that get created for Warhammer tend to be very heavily divorced from the mechanics of the game. Which is why we have so many like units. There's so many units in this game that are just an unplayable archetype of unit. And Hellions are such a perfect example of that because they're like, you know what? Drukhari, this faction with a predominance of extremely cheap, very fast biker units and extremely cheap, very fast transports with infantry in them. They need an extremely cheap, very fast infantry unit that doesn't go in transports. And you're like, but... So you've created a Venn diagram of like fast bikers and fast infantry and transports. And then in the overlap of the Venn diagram, you've created a third unit type that exists in the middle between the two. But doesn't do anything nearly as good as the other 2 units that you jammed together to make them. So why do these exist? And the reason is that like the Green Goblin is cool, I guess, and they just wanted to make a Green Goblin model back in the 90s, and so they did. But like it doesn't do anything. And Hellions are like such a perfect example of that. Because if they don't randomly just like have the most insane melee profile ever, then they're just worthless. They're super worthless. They will always be outshone by other types of units in the Codex. And there's like so many units like that in 40k. We just talked about Tactical Marines. Like an Intercessor Squad is just mechanically worthless in this game. But they keep making them. They keep ranking them because they're in the lore. So you got to have the intercessor guy with the bolt rifle. Got to have a bolt rifle guy. A little space marine with a little strength 4 gun. What's that strength 4 gun doing? GW? Fuck all. That's the answer. He's doing an action sometimes. Cool. Cool, man. Good job. Proud of you, buddy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, chat. Like, Reavers are the better option, right? You'll be like, well, if I want a fast utility unit, I will play Reavers. And if I want it to do damage with a gun, it'll be Reavers. And if I want it to do damage in melee, it'll be like Incubi in a Venom. So there's like, the only time that you ever see Hellions is if their output is so ludicrous that it is better than Incubi in a Venom. Which happened in 9th edition, and then literally the only unit you ever played was Hellions. Because then the pendulum swung the other way, and suddenly none of the other things were worth playing. It's very stupid. It's just like it's a unit that doesn't work in like the game design of 40k. But it's so classic to the game that it still exists. Just Legends Hellions, chat. Just get rid of them. The intercessor has sticky objectives. Yes. Yes. I'm actually... Wow, I tried to get into this other event, and it is just not working. What happened here? Manwatu Maelstrom has broken BCP. Maybe BCP is just dead. Oh, there it goes. Yay! Woo! A little bit of Necrons going on. Is this more Hypercrypt stuff? Yeah, it kind of surprises me that there's that people are still playing the 5 like intercessors. And I guess it's like probably more effective as a backline holder than assault intercessors, but like I don't know. Why would you ever take these guys? Tesseract Vault, Hypercrypt. That's cool. Manawatu Maelstrom. Matt Von Wick. Rockin' some Grey Knights. Double Brotherhood Tech Marine. Oh, excuse me. Double? What is wrong with me? That's 3 Brotherhood Tech Marines there, my dude. Plus a Nemesis Grandmaster with Sigil. Double Strike Marines in a Rhino. What? What? So we can scout the Rhino because it's got Strike Marines in it. And then they don't die instantly. Is that good? Maybe. You lose the capacity to teleport, which probably doesn't matter. But scouting the Rhino just gives you more reach on turn 1. And protects you too. And then you can heal it with the Tech Marines. Subductor Squad, Calidus Assassin, Canis Rex. It's the Knight team. Oh, what a classic archetype. Triple Tech Marines. I guess I don't know. The Rhino's good utility. You get to scout it, and then you disembark with your guys. Oh, excuse me. And then if it takes damage, you can heal it, and it heals itself. And it just sits in your backline the whole game. It is annoying to kill. I guess so. If you're already taking triple Tech Marine, you almost might as well have the Rhino. Imagine playing more than 1 squad of witches for Lilith. Yeah. I mean, witches at least are at least they function. They have a unique function in the army, right? They're the anti-infantry melee infantry squad. It's just that's not a thing that is really good in 40k right now. And honestly, they're underpowered, for sure. For their cost. I think the anti-infantry melee infantry squads have to be really good at anti-infantry to be played. Because turns out, here's a fun fact, chat, for you today. Your fun fact for Monday, October 14th, 2024. If you have a gun that's good at killing a tank, you can kill an infantry guy with it too. Do you know that? Fun fact. The reverse, not true. if a gun that kills an infantry guy can't kill a tank with it. So an incubi unit is basically like always more efficient than a witch unit because it's good at killing tanks, but you could also you could stab a guy with its sword and he'd still die. So witches need to be like, the unit that clears infantry really efficiently has to be fucking nuts at killing infantry. And they're just not for cost, which means you don't play them. But it's less of an identity crisis than like Hellions, where Hellions are like, we literally are a unit that exists elsewhere in the Codex. Like a Hellion versus a Reaver jet bike. It's like corporate wants to find you the difference between these two pictures. They're the same picture. One of them is a splinter pod. The other one has a splinter rifle, but also a heat lance and also an automatic grenade and also does mortal wounds on like flying over you. And also has like an okay melee attack too. I don't know. Yeah, don't get me wrong, chat. You can't kill 100 infantry with one las cannon, but you can kill an infantry. Whereas if you have 20 bolt guns, you will do fuck all to like an armored vehicle, right? Like if the comparison is like let's say like 10 bolter shots versus one las cannon. The las cannon is going to be more useful in more situations than the 10 bolter shots are, right? Because the 10 bolter shots can kill, let's say, 6 infantry, whereas the las cannon is only going to kill 1. But the las cannon will also kill medium infantry more efficiently, heavy infantry more efficiently, and tanks more efficiently. Every single other situation, it's better. So in order for that comparison to be closer, you need to have like 30 bolter shots. You know what I mean? So like your anti-infantry sweeping power has to be significantly higher than a big heavy weapon, because the heavy weapon is just going to be more consistent. Right. So here's the other thing too, chat, is in like this is a very conceptual discussion, but in the it is a classic part of Warhammer 40k's design is that low toughness, like low save infantry, tend to die by themselves, right? There's like a passive attrition to 40k that units tend to absorb just because of how the game is designed. Part of it is that every model in the unit has melee attacks, and you melee on your opponent's turn as well. So if you have 20 cultists, also there tends to be sort of anti-infantry guns attached to things that are just like tangential, right? So if I'm talking about my las cannon team, the las cannon team probably also has some bolt guns in it. You know what I mean? So units, low toughness units will tend to attrition themselves down to a manageable number by the end of the game, right? Without you having to dedicate these big anti-infantry sweepers to them. The point is that if you want to kill them all together, you want to bring a dedicated unit to do that. But the unit has to be good enough to kill them consistently, because otherwise, there's no point in taking it. You would just take a weapon that's going to be better in more situations. The same is not necessarily true for stuff with high defensive characteristics that does not take that sort of attritional damage passively. So like a Land Raider, for example, does not care that your las cannon team has a bolt gun in it, because the chances of you damaging that Land Raider with a bolt gun are basically 0. And it does not care that your guys get to attack back, because again, your chances of doing damage are basically 0. So the 20 cultists are actually like 12 cultists, because randomly they will get killed over the course of the game. Whereas the Land Raider is always one Land Raider, if that makes sense. Unless there are 200 of them. I mean, sure. But even then, like, one of the reasons that hordes tend to be less of an efficient skew. This is like just a thing that happens in 40k in general. Unless your horde has to be extremely good to be an effective skew. You can play 6 Land Raiders, and it is always at some point effective. But you cannot play 200 Guardsmen and expect to always do well, because low save characteristic units tend to just die over the course of the game by themselves more often. You are receiving damage from your opponent, but you are not necessarily inflicting it back, and that's just a characteristic of horde units, generally speaking. The horde units that are good are also either have additional defensive mechanics that make them more difficult for those anti-infantry guns to kill. Then, or they also have their own special abilities, or they have insane damage output by themselves. Just taking a unit of a bunch of dudes is not necessarily like that good. Which is why that horde armies tend, like the effective horde armies tend to be much narrower than effective like vehicle armies or knight armies or like big high defensive skews. Skewing defensive stats is generally speaking more effective in 40k than skewing bottle count. Exactly why hordes are such a meta defending archetype right now? Are they? I would not say hordes are particularly meta right now. I guess like there are some good ones that are effective, right? You know, that we've watched, but I don't. I think that they. I don't know if they're like you would call them like the number one thing. You know what I mean? Horde Guard was killed and they changed reinforcement strats once per game. Was Horde Guard killed or were Attilan Rough Riders killed? I do think that did hurt Horde Guard quite a bit. Honestly, it hit like all the Horde armies. That change, I understand why they made it. Because I think that the detachments that had access to that stratagem, it so defined that entire detachment. Like, if you have the reinforcement strat, that is where you're putting your CP, right? And that's like, that defines the entire game. If you can answer the reinforcement strat, it becomes it becomes a manageable archetype. If you can't, then they will use it as many times as they possibly can. Which I think is sort of parasitic game design. But the problem is that if you create an ability that is so defining to a particular archetype, and then you nerf that ability, then it's just a bad detachment. It's just not good. And it's like surprising to me that they just simply like removed many of those detachments from the game effectively, rather than trying to rework the stratagem. Because I think there are ways to make that stratagem much more usable, and in like less of an abusive way. And it was like wild that they were just like, nah, fuck it, once per game. I don't know. And it's not like Guard are suffering, because at least their army does other things, right? But like the Tyranid, like Endless Swarm is just dead. Like you just can't play it anymore. It doesn't do anything. Oh, I get 20 gargoyles back once per game, so they can die immediately. Cool. Okay. The laziest way to address it, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think you could like cut the model count in half or something, or you could like you could change the effect. You make it so that they like instead of dying, they regenerate some number of models. You know what I mean? Like instead of just like saying, I don't know. I think that the point was that the effect was probably too strong to be used infinitely. So they should have changed the effect instead of just restricted it. But I don't know. Make it a 2CP and no dice roll. I would rather not see like the dice roll like mechanics come in. Once on each unit instead of once per game. That's actually probably like the way to go. Because then, right, you kill a bunch of units all at once. One respawns, and then you kill that unit again, and it's done, right? And then they might get one or two uses over the course. I think that just becomes hard to track, though. You're like, did you kill this Termagant unit, or did you kill this Termagant unit? You're like, I don't remember. Maybe it's better than I'm thinking of. I think there are ways to deal with it, but it might be that like Tyranids have other detachments, and they were mostly worried about it with Militarum, and like theoretically, if the Militarum Codex should just have like a rework for it baked in, and so they were just like, fuck it, we'll leave it bad for 6 months, and then have a new version in the new Codex anyway. Brings back half the unit, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see that half stuff. I wonder if there's like weird mechanical implications, but I think you just bring back the unit, like, or choose half the unit to remain destroyed and then return them to strategic reserve, I guess. But like, if you introduce it in a faction that has like other reinforcement effects, like, does that get weird? Where you're like, half the unit's destroyed, but then I can regenerate them. But I don't know. I don't know. Like, it wouldn't work as well on Tyranids, right? Because, like, you could be like, half the unit comes back, but then I'll just heal the other half. We need a state in 40k where you're removed from play. There's most other games have that. They have, like, a permanently destroyed state for a model. You can be on the battlefield, destroyed, or removed from the game. And if you're removed from the game, then you're dead forever. But if you're not, then you have capacity to come back. And, like, some of your abilities and stuff trigger. Could be, like, ways to make Angron work a little bit more effectively. Angron, like, basically breaks all the core fundamentals of the game right now, too. Because of Angron, you have to have an FAQ that allows you to continue to play while your army is destroyed. Which is in the rules commentary now, but rules as written, you technically don't. As soon as your army is destroyed, you no longer take turns. You also, the implication is also that your abilities are still effective when you're destroyed, which I think basically only works for Angron, but I think there's other implications as well. It's weird. It's weird, chat. Yeah, Magic the Gathering is... I mean, Magic the Gathering... And this is like a... This is some of my own philosophy. I think Magic the Gathering is probably the game with the most amount of human effort involved in its design, right? If you look at the number of man hours or person hours that have been dedicated to designing and refining Magic the Gathering, I would bet you real actual money that number is higher than literally any other game that humans have ever designed in the history of the universe. I think that Magic is the most heavily designed game of all time, period. And I think that it would behoove any other game designer to utilize that collected experience. So if you are struggling with a tenant of your game that is problematic for you, look at how Magic resolves it, and that's probably the correct answer, because that means that thousands of people have, over the course of 30 years, have identified the way that game is currently doing it as the most effective one. Magic is like such an important tool for every other game that I think it only makes sense to pay more attention to it. You can make a computer from the cards and make sure to do basic math. No, I watched that. Bonsai Kitty Gaming. I watched that. Yeah, you can build a computer inside a Magic the Gathering interaction. Yeah. No, I literally watched that video. The math is a little over my head because I don't know what numbers are, but it was a very fascinating it was a fascinating video to watch because it was a guy who did I think it was like a doctoral paper on for his degree on a Magic the Gathering game state that could be used to solve math equations, which was super cool. Should they do an open beta format for proposed balance changes? I don't think so. No. I don't think that works in video gaming because the iteration time is so fast. It doesn't work in miniature games. The amount of participation you get in a miniature game is so much lower, so you end up generating fewer results, and they tend to be much more biased results simply because the community is smaller, right? And there's not necessarily there's not technical things that you're testing, which is a big part of beta testing video games, where if you're like, hey, we have a public test realm to ensure that there are no bugs in this mechanic, right? Whereas that is not necessarily the case for miniature gaming. You don't necessarily need to play a game on the table to make sure that it works correctly. That's not the case for everything. Obviously, there's some corner cases, but like, you know, the requirements aren't necessarily there. And War Machine did this, and I think it was just like a disaster. It was probably one of the things that contributed to the fracturing of that community, where suddenly it became this instead of the game like awaiting balance updates to return to to balance. Every faction community became a waiting period for the next period of beta testing so that they could submit feedback to make their faction better. You know what I mean? So it became like this super biased tool that didn't really actually end up improving the game like that much. Like everyone complained about everyone else's new stuff and submitted like bad feedback, you know, submitted feedback for their own stuff. And it just ended up not being that useful. Was my experience with that mechanic, with that system. So I actually don't think it's very appropriate for 40K or for miniature games in general. I think like your rules should be living, right? You should have the capacity to change them periodically if stuff arrives that's problematic, but you don't necessarily need to go through this you don't necessarily have to fracture the community into multiple test games. Hope they do something intense like a campaign or storybook that also includes new detachments for each faction. Yeah, those were cool ways to update the game that they did previously. That was like the way the old campaign books used to work. You don't need to beta test for dice rolls. You do for the equivalent of video games. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, like the core engine of miniature games is like the human brain, which has been beta tested for a really long time. Do humans work good? You know, there's some bugs that we're still working out, but for the most part, they function okay. Less so for a video game. What is it? 1 p.m. chat? I think I might hop off momentarily here, folks. This has been a really interesting discussion. A really good stream. Interesting discussion about BFS. I very much enjoyed that event, but I am a little bit unhappy with how it ended up. I don't know. It is what it is. But I will be live on Twitch in an hour, which is why I would hop off now to prepare for that stream. D&D has a similar thing with test books before they come out. Acquiring models makes it less in good faith. Yeah. It adds to the like the difficulty for sure. And it might be that it like, I don't know. There's like so much available data you can get from like Tabletop Simulator. Like maybe you could create a community of people to beta test with that, I think. As long as it was a specific group of players and you knew who you were talking to. But as soon as you open it to the masses, then everyone just like knee jerks their own reactions to things, and the games don't actually get tested. It's also like it's just playing games takes a long time, man, and there's like logistical difficulties required. The question is whether you're gonna put it to the community like, hey, do you want to play a game that is competitively non-viable because it's beta testing new things? So you're not practicing for a competitive event, but you're still gonna spend a bunch of time on it, playing rules that will probably change. And if in doing so, do you want to play like 1 or 2 games with those rules and then submit feedback for how you feel that the rules should be changed in perpetuity? Probably not. That's not enough data. And every person, like, they'll be like, hey, we're beta testing this new unit or this new update to a detachment. And the person plays 1 game with it and gets 1 game worth of results and submits feedback instead of theoretically playing it dozens of times, which is what it would need to take in order for like constructive feedback to be generated, which is just logistically impossible for miniature games. It just doesn't make sense, in my opinion. We did talk about tournaments last week. We did. on Monday and Tuesday. And I will be back Tuesday with some more discussion tomorrow afternoon for Tactical Tuesday as well. What we're going to talk about there, I'm not sure yet. It's such a weird holding pattern between now and whatever the update shows up. So I don't know, but we'll probably just run through some events, some more X1 lists again. But anyway, chat, I'm gonna go ahead and hop off. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. Please come hang out with me on Twitch. I'll drop a link. Twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise. There you go. I'm going to be live in 1 hour over there. I'm playing 6 Wraith Lords. I've literally never played the list before, so wish me luck. I played against Genestealer Cult, a faction against which I've played one time, post Codex, so it's going to be great. What could possibly go wrong? But hopefully my many thousands of Wraith Lords will see me through. Those guys, that's a good unit, right? Wraith Lord's definitely not trash. We'll find out. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. Thanks for all the folks who supported, and also everybody who supported yesterday over at Battle for Salvation. I really appreciate that. I will let everyone know. I am going to be streaming the Battle for Breast Cancer, or Battle Against Breast Cancer. We're not battling for breast cancer. We're battling against it. The week after next, so that is going to be the 25th and 26th, or 26th and 27th of October. That's going to be my next live stream. And then I have like two or three like back-to-back scheduled in November. So there's going to be a ton more event coverage coming on the channel. So if you enjoyed Battle for Salvation, stay tuned. And I'll see you over on Twitch. Cheers, everyone.